Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business with me, Danny Pardo. We are going on a career journey and a half today with Kerrie. If you ever needed proof that careers don't always go in a straight line from college to university to employment, and then everything's just fine and dandy till you retire, then this is the episode for you. So let's get stuck into Talking Business with Kerrie. Hello, everyone. We are Talking Business, and today we've got Kerrie with us. Hello, Kerrie. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Really excited.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. So this is quite an interesting one because I actually don't know too much about you, and we're going to go with a flow here. And I also wanted to point out to anybody listening and watching, if you think that all of these things always go perfect, they don't. My first email to Kerrie, I called you by the wrong name, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
But don't worry, it made me laugh. And like I said, I answer to most things. It's easily done. I've been in the same boat where I've been typing an email and sort of make spelling mistakes and all sorts. So don't worry about it.
Super.
It broke the ice. It's all good.
It did, yeah. Maybe I did it on purpose. Spoiler, I didn't. So, nobody's going to do everything right all the time. So we've got Kerrie, whose name I now know. So let's get into what we're going to discuss today. But before we go too far, I mean, who is Kerrie? Who am I talking to today?
So, hi, I'm Kerrie Nicholson, and I like to describe myself as a freelance theatre writer and podcaster. And I'm also an aspiring novelist. I'm working on my first draft at the moment. So yes, the written word is where I feel most comfortable. So yeah, I like to sort of describe myself as a freelancer.
Brilliant. Okay, so this world of freelancing, then you obviously go between jobs quite a bit. Is that right?
Yes, I mean a lot of my freelancing that I do at the moment is unpaid. So I'm using it as a way to kind of build my portfolio and my experience, and one of my publications that I've been writing long term for is Broadway World UK. I've been with them for 5 years now? So, yes, 5 years, since 2016. And then I've got another company who I'm currently freelancing for, West End Best Friend, and they're quite a sort of relatively new business. Well, they just sort of celebrated their first anniversary last week. So yeah, I'm just sort of taking time with them to kind of build my portfolio, and the work comes in on a kind of semi-regular basis where you can kind of give them your availability, and they'll say, right guys, I need somebody to write me sort of 500 words and go and watch this play, or go and watch this piece of theatre, or review this book for me. It's all very varied. I love it.
Brilliant. So you must be absolutely itching to get back out there and go watch and experience and have those feelings again.
I know. It's been really hard, as it has been for everybody, but particularly for me, theatre is where I found my tribe and my community that I love and enjoy, and people that have sort of accepted me and my sort of limitations that I have. So being away from that has been really hard, but it's also been quite interesting just to see how everybody has adapted to this, because everybody's been able to do work over Zoom or like mini concerts and all sorts, and put things together really quickly, and it's kind of forced them to kind of think outside the box a little bit, kind of think about the way they approach things and do it in a more creative way in terms of all the restrictions that they have, because they haven't had their the space that they would normally have. They haven't had the audiences and things like that. So can't wait to get back. I have got lots booked in for after June when restrictions are hopefully lifted. So hopefully we won't go back into another lockdown.
Wow. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So well, that's fascinating. It's nice that you picked out some of the opportunities that businesses have took on there, because obviously it has been a trying and challenging time for all of us. But you know, the things that have come out of it, some of the positives that you're mentioning on there, where you had to adapt. There was no other choice. Or let your business fail.
Mm.
And it's interesting that you picked up on those, but you were still able to kind of interact with people and do that during
Mm.
the lockdowns that we've had, three, I think, now at this point in time. So let's hope that's the end of it, and we can just get back out
Fingers
and.
crossed.
Indeed. So what's your career journey then? So you say now you're a freelancer. Is that something that you thought, I always want to be a freelancer? Um,
I, no, is the short answer. I went to university, and my degree is in English literature, and I studied in Cardiff. Um, so I did that, and I wouldn't say naively, but I was very much of the school of thought where I was like, right, I'm gonna go to uni and do my 3 years of studying, and will I'll get a job from there, and it'll be fine. That's I know where my path's going, and it didn't turn out like that at all. So I graduated 2011, and then sort of had a year and a half of looking for a job. I didn't really know at that time kind of what I wanted to be doing. All I kind of knew that I just wanted to be kind of out there and kind of having that sort of satisfaction of working and earning my own wage, as it were. Um, so 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 I graduated the first time, and then I eventually decided that I wanted to do my teach teach put my teeth back in, my PGCE, my teacher training. So I applied for that. My application was declined, which was quite sort of soul destroy. I'm not entirely sure of the ins and outs of that. So, but that hit me quite hard, and I was like, oh, I got really upset. I was like, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do now. Because that was what I kind of focused all my energy on and kind of set my sights on that. So I went away and did uh, um, I thought to myself, with, with that goal of eventually becoming a teacher in mind, I said, "Oh, I probably need to go away and get myself some more classroom experience." So I went and did my teacher assistant training, my level 2. Um, Spent 6 months to a year volunteering with primary school kids, and that was really rewarding and really fun. So I've got that qualification under my belt. And then I didn't actually get my, um, and then I sort of went back to the cycle of job hunting and just getting rejections coming at me left, right, and centre. And I said, you know what, I want to go back to uni. And because I found sort of studying, I enjoyed that structure and that routine to my day and having something to focus on. So I went back and did my master's degree, and eventually got myself a job working in as a receptionist at a housing administration. First day job, was actually overjoyed to have it, and um, the team were lovely, but that didn't work out for reasons we can talk a little bit more of that later, because I think it's quite relevant to one of the other questions you asked me, but that we're going to talk about. But long story short, that didn't work out. And in between all these kind of difficult times, I was sort of still going and enjoying my love of theatre and writing about it, and people were really impressed with my writing, and they'd always say to me, "Oh, Kerrie, I really enjoy it. You're so good at it." And I thought to myself, well, if people are enjoying what I'm doing, maybe there's something in that, and I enjoy giving, you know, give putting that energy sort of into that, and giving people something that they enjoy. So it's only sort of been in the last sort of year or two that I've kind of thought of maybe freelancing sort of more seriously, and that I've kind of sort of wanted to do something with it and see where it can lead me, really.
Mm. Fascinating. I mean, what a journey. You know, it's I speak to the students a lot. Obviously, it's my job as a teacher, and you know, we discuss career pathways, and very, very few people have this amazing straight line of, I was 16, I decided what I was going to do, and then at 18 I did this, and then at 21 I did this, and then everything went swimmingly, and now I'm going to retire doing the same job I started at. But that is such a rare occurrence nowadays, and you are more proof of that. You know, I'm proof of it, you're proof of it, and pretty much everybody I know is proof that you've got to keep your eyes and your ears open and keep your options open, and you're going to have setbacks as well. You know, you talked about you had your heart and your mind set on that, and now you've gone in a different direction, but you seem quite settled, and if people are enjoying what you're doing, you're enjoying it, you know, so you've got that balance of both of you doing, having that enjoyment from it, which is fantastic. Do you, I was going to say, do you see yourself freelancing for a bit then? Is that something you'll probably stick with for the time being?
For the time being, yes. I'd like the dream now is to get into theatre marketing and PR and social media. That is the goal, kind of long term, because that's essentially what I'm doing at the moment already. But I'm just struggling to get my foot in the door at the minute. So I'm just taking time to sort of build up my portfolio and try and build up contacts sort of in the industry as well, and sort of hone my craft a little bit, get better at it, so that eventually when I am ready to sort of apply for those sort of jobs, I'll be in better stead to do so.
You are proving here that it is not a case of you sending one CV and one covering letter and you wait for the jobs to come to you. And everybody comes knocking on your door and says, oh, we need you to do it. You know, there's a lot of hard work, isn't there, to go in and get in these jobs.
I mean, that's something I've learned, kind of, or that is a kind of skill I sort of, I'm going to call it a skill, having that resilience to be able to be sort of say, right, today I'm going to send out, let's say, 10, 15 CVs, and kind of knowing that things are going to take time and people are going to come back to you and they're going to say thank you but no thank you. And it can take a while to sort of bring yourself back up from those rejections, but it's just kind of learning how to deal with that a little bit better, and knowing that it's not a reflection on you as a person or your lack of or a lack of particular skills you might have. It's just you're not the right fit for that person or that business at that time, and that's not to say you won't ever be, but yeah, it is a long journey, and I've definitely noticed that my sort of outlook has changed, where I've gone from wanting to do one particular thing, and it has opened doors, and it's been great because I'm speaking to people that I wouldn't necessarily be speaking to normally, and it's just kind of forced me into a sort of new. It's given me, I think, a better perspective on what I need to do, and I need to put the work in, and I'll get out of it what I put into it. And that is it's a really hard lesson to learn sometimes, but it's a really important and a good one.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, resilience is a key thing, but it's hard to teach as well. It does come with experience. From my experience, from yours, from a lot of people I've spoke to, you teaching resilience and teaching how to get over failure is not something that you can do in a classroom. It really feels like you've got to go out there, do it, and learn from it. I mean, I've got a red folder that's got all my rejection letters in from all the jobs I've applied to over the years. And I look back now and I think, well, of course I wasn't going to get that. Look at that covering letter. That was awful. You know, what did I think? But at the time it was, that's it. I'm never going to get a job. Oh my gosh! And you've just got to build it up, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you've built it up, and that's fantastic to hear. Let's talk a bit then about cerebral palsy. So for people watching and listening, I know I've mentioned this in class, and not many people have really known what it is. Is there a description of it that you can give to us, so that if we're listening and watching, we can hear what your opinion of or your interpretation of cerebral palsy is, please?
So I should say at first, it's a condition that affects sort of my brain and sort of my fine motor skills. So that sort of in all four of my limbs, there's lots of different variations of it, and it can affect people differently. Mine mostly affects my things like my hand-eye coordination. I'm not able to walk. And that happened. I was born 3 months premature, and I think it's what, from my understanding of it, is I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I suffered a lack of oxygen to the brain when I was born, and I think that's what brought it on. The way I kind of sort of describe it, or the way I like to describe it to people, is that I'm quite lucky in the sense that I can still sort of communicate quite well, and it's just my legs that let me down really. And I've had I've been in a wheelchair sort of not from birth. I think probably sort of when I hit school age, I had a manual wheelchair, but now I've got an electric one, so that's given me more freedom as well. And I suffer with it tends to affect my muscles really badly because they're not getting used. I get a lot of, or used in, say, the most traditional senses. So I get a lot of stiffness, back pain, from being sat down in one position for most of the day. And I'm not going to lie, there are ways in which it limits my life. But I've never known any different. So, and it does get me down a little bit, because there are, like I say, there are ways in which it restricts my life, mainly due to society and lack of access to buildings and things like that. But generally, I like to think I'm in a pretty good place with it, sort of accepting it and accepting myself as a person, as a person with it. And again, that's been that can be quite a difficult journey as well.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that with me. We really appreciate that, giving your perspective on that and talking about your career journey that you've had so far. You've really not let anything hold you back by the sounds of it. So you said society there. So let's talk about society, shall we? Let's see. This might take a few hours, but we'll see how we get on.
We could do a whole other interview on
we
this.
could, yeah, like a 10-part series on society. But society-wise, then, because I've spoke to my students in class about various things, so multiple sclerosis, depression, cerebral palsy, and I know that when we did cerebral palsy, and the only way that we could describe it was the guy from Breaking Bad. And I don't think that's any fault of my students, really, because they just hadn't been exposed to it. I mean, we're talking about 16, 17-year-olds. They've only got the media they've got and the places they go to. Yeah, so, what's your take on that?
People haven't got the very wide frame of reference, have they? They're given what the media choose to, and what they churn out for people to engage with. And it's a tricky one, I'd say, but I'm so, how can I put this politely? I get really, really frustrated at times, particularly with the lack of representation of disability in the media. Not, I know mine is more of a physical
Mhm.
disability, but just disability in general. I'm so
Mm.
sick of the narrative being that the disability has to form part of the story. You know, it becomes like the linchpin that everything else is kind of dealt with, and you kind of
Yeah.
get the whole kind of, oh, aren't they wonderful despite all the challenges that they have? And you know, we're kind of seen as these fantastic sort of beacons of sort of hope, um, and sort of I get a lot of people kind of feeling quite sorry for me,
Mm.
kind of in terms of, oh, aren't you wonderful, and isn't it amazing that you've overcome what you have in spite of the challenges, yeah, and that's great, but just once I'd like to see more representation from the point of view that where the disability isn't part of the story,
Mhm.
or like for I don't know, somebody to, I don't know, play the romantic lead and things like that, or the villain, and it not be the kind of disability not be the defining factor.
Yes, yeah. You know, you're focusing on the character and who they are, what they do, rather than,
Yeah,
oh, they've got a disability. Well, we could do a storyline about how the disability does this. Do you think that is that from a lack of understanding by people who are creating these things? I mean, by creating these things, I mean, you know, media that we see everywhere, whether we're watching the news or watching a television show or a movie or sports broadcasting or anything. Is it a lack of understanding, or do you think it's a lack of or a bit of fear that, well, if we don't do it at all, that's okay, and if we do it and it goes wrong, that's even worse. So let's just play it safe.
I
What's your kind of feel as to why it's not happening?
I think it's a combination of those two things, and
Mm.
I definitely think there is a lack of awareness out there, and people are just people. You hear about it a lot, again, because it's an industry that I know and love. You hear a lot about it with theatre and movies, where they
Mm.
kind of say, "Oh, we couldn't find or we couldn't find um the right sort of disabled actor." And it's like, don't give me that excuse. There are out there. Have you looked hard enough for them? But again, I think the fear, sort of the fear factor is there, and I think that there is kind of a desire to want to play it safe. And it does it I find it really disheartening at times, because um there um 'cause we because sort of, if you want to be able to, how can I sorry,
It's all right.
baffling. But it's kind of like, if you want to tell our stories, get
Mm.
people that have actually lived these experiences, and we'll come, get in touch with us,
Mm.
sit down with us, and
Mm.
sort of get our take on things, if you want to be able to do it sensitively. And
Mm.
that sounds a bit hypocritical of me, because there are certain movies that I can think of where sort of non-disabled actors have played not disabled characters that
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed. But the more I see of it, the more I'm kind of sort of getting under the skin of why the issue is such a, why it's
Mm.
a problem, and why it should be seen as a problem and needs to be addressed. So my thinking around it has changed quite a lot.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well. In terms of, you spoke about able-bodied actors being then portraying, and you hear the praise heaped upon them. Oh, they portrayed it very well. They did a great job of portraying it. Well, why not get somebody who doesn't have to portray it, because
Yeah.
they're actually living that?
Hmm.
But hey, I'm not a screenwriter,
I
and
know, and
I've
and there seems to be this mentality that they need big names to put bums on seats, and sell
Mm,
tickets, and that's really, really sad. I think
mm,
it's really,
yeah,
really sad, and it kind of takes away from how authentic these stories could be.
yeah.
But
Yeah. And then, I mean, that's what you're looking for, though, isn't it? In theatre and
mm,
television and movies, you're looking for a certain sense
mhm.
of authenticity because you have to believe in what you're watching and experiencing.
I remember, just as a little side note too,
Mm,
I went to see a play called uh, was it last year or the year before? Anyway, the play is called A Day in the Death of Joe Egg, and it's about it focuses on the parents of Joa. She has my condition, but it's a
mm,
more severe form of it, and it's about how the toll of taking care of her has kind of impacted the parents' marriage.
mhm,
And this particular version of the show marks the first time ever. I think the play was written in the 60s, and it was the first time ever her character has been played by a disabled actress. And
wow.
the play has been going for how many years? So
Wow.
I went to that, and that was a really kind of eye-opening experience. It felt
Mm,
important to me to be there for that. Um, but it was interesting because the play is of its time as well and might be a little bit sort of dated in terms of its
mm,
attitudes and the way it um, sort of explores the issues. But no, that was a really eye-opening
mm.
um,
And what a shame that it took.
experience.
Yeah, what a shame that it took half a century to get to the point where they would actually put a disabled actor in the main role, disabled actor and actress in the main
Mm.
role. That's quite stunning. So, I mean, leading on to that, then, have your career choices? You've talked about some life limitations that you have from cerebral
Mhm.
palsy. Have they led to career choices and changes because of your condition there? Or have you felt limited in career wise um, from your condition?
Um, that's an interesting question. Again, I think a lot of it stems back um, from I've lost count of the amount of interviews that I've had to turn down because going away, I've looked into where the business is and how to get there ready for like the next
Mm,
week when I've got the interview and everything like that. And I had to phone them up and say, I actually can't get in your building because it's not accessible for me to do so. I've also had one where I had a call about an apprenticeship, and they called me and they said, "Are you available to come in tomorrow and talk to us?" Um, and I was overjoyed. I was like, "Yeah, of course. Here's all you know my details and everything." And not 5 minutes before after I put down the phone, they rang me back and they admitted that they just read my CV properly and won't be able to see me because they're upstairs and they haven't got any access. So I think
wow.
it's sort of it's sort of limiting me in that way, and also the fact that I've kind of gone away into my sort of freelance writing world as well. Because I know I said earlier I initially wanted to train and be a teacher, but
Mm,
I figured just where I was at physically and mentally at that time, I was thinking maybe the classroom environment isn't ideal for me because
mm,
I know that the classrooms are set up certain ways, the tables are
mm,
certain heights and I know there's things that can be done to sort of adapt and adaptations can be made.
mm,
It's definitely made me think more sort of strategically. I think
mhm,
sort of my condition has made me sort of be very careful about where I want to apply
mm,
and the kind of thing I want to be doing.
mm,
Um, well, because my what happened with my receptionist job as well. I was there for 6 months,
mm,
and it took 4 of those months for them just to put the headset in so I could answer the phone properly because um I struggle particularly with my right hand, but both with my grip. So it's better if I have a headset like this if I'm
mm,
talking to folks. So yeah, I think they bit off more than they could chew, and
wow.
you do feel sometimes. I mean, I don't want to sound overly negative because I know that's not the point of why I'm here sort of talking to you. But
No,
you do
I'd
feel
rather you be
sometimes
honest.
you do feel sometimes, or at least in my experience, that you are there just to tick their box to say they've spoken to somebody that has a disability, so they can tick that off on their quotas and all their paperwork that they have. Um, I remember there's another instance as well where they've literally said to me, "We like you, and you have a lot of the skills that we're looking for." I was like,
Mm,
"Great, they might, might be in here, might get the job."
mhm.
But they said to me, "But we worry about you being able to hold down a full-time job, given your um given your circumstances that you're in."
Wow,
But
wow.
that was a really tough one to take.
That's absolutely stunning that, that they would be so I don't know if two-faced is the right word about this, or what I'm trying to kind of say, but certainly it feels like the businesses are losing out on people like yourself
Yeah.
because they're not making the appropriate changes. And I appreciate
Mm.
building design, does limit certain things, but on the most part, it would seem like just put the effort in, because you,
Mhm.
you are you are taking away a lot of people from the potential pool of applicants
Yeah.
who are perfectly able, above and beyond what your job description has called for,
Absolutely.
simply because yeah, well, it was a headset, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that flight of stairs, but oh
Yeah.
gosh, so that's terrible to hear. This is 2021. We're not talking
Mhm.
about 30, 40 years
I know.
ago, before acts come in, and Equality Act and Disability Discrimination Act. We're talking about right now.
Mm.
So it's quite bizarre to hear all that. I mean, do you think then the workplace, um, the way with the changes we've had in the past year with COVID, do you think that's going to have a positive or a negative impact on cerebral palsy, yourself with cerebral palsy?
See, again, I think I can see it from both sides. I mean,
Mm,
I think it would be really good for me because then businesses won't have to think about applying for funding to make all
mm,
these adaptations. Like they wouldn't
mm,
have they wouldn't have to put a hoist in the bathroom so that I'd be able to use the bathroom. They wouldn't
mm,
have to, adapt their headsets. They wouldn't have to make sure all the doors are electronic and all sorts. All I'd need would probably be my phone and my laptop and a good Wi-Fi connection, which
mm,
I know that I have. So, really speaking, I think I'm kind of work ready. If I could find the right job, I'd be ready to start tomorrow.
mm,
But uh, by that same token, it's kind of like, well, should I be doing that? Just,
mm,
kind of, is there a need
mm,
for me to kind of put myself in that work from home box just
mm,
because it does take a bit more time to make sure the businesses are ready and it'll make life easier, but I'd miss out on all the things
mm.
that make kind of going to work fun. You miss out on kind of building that rapport with the team
Yeah.
and just having that day to day, the hustle and bustle of being at work and
Mm,
you know all that side of things as well. I'd like to think that sort of with the pandemic and everything, it will make people more mindful
mm,
of the need for flexibility. Um, but ag- um, but yeah, we just have to,
mm,
like I say, I'd like to think that
mm.
it would make people more mindful of it,
Yeah.
and they'd be they'd be more open to sort of maybe employing more disabled people for their business. That's one of the things that I'm hoping comes out of it, is a kind of slight shift in the changes of attitudes and stuff.
And I hope you're right. I really do. I hope it doesn't become a sense of, well, we have a disabled member of staff. Oh, that's okay. They can work from home, and that's the end of the discussion. You know, I hope that that's not the easy way out for organisations, that they really see that everybody needs to be included in the workplace, wherever that workplace is, whether it be virtual or real or a bit of both, or you know, really got to include people in it. I mean, thank you so much for all your information and your stories and your journey that you've been on. It really is quite inspiring and educational for us all. I wanted to ask you one last question, if that's all right with you. And that is that if you could go back to when you were, say, 17, 18, and give yourself some advice, or if somebody had given you some advice that you wish you could have listened to, what would that advice be?
Oh, so 17, 18. I would go back and tell myself that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to fail, but you have to learn to pick yourself back up, and that you will pick yourself back up. It's not the end of the world. Because I remember having a particularly sort of rough third year at uni, and I had two really wonderful lecturers who I sort of particularly sort of gravitated towards, and they were the ones that I went to if I had sort of any problems. And I vividly remember just feeling so run down, and sort of I was in the throes of having essay deadlines and things, and I was having a sort of rough time physically and mentally, lack of sleep. And I remember having to go for a meeting with one of them, and I promptly just about my essay and how it was going, and sort of I had to go and say, right, I've got to go and see Martin now about, you know, this is the question I want to do. And I just remember bursting into tears and saying, oh, I can't do it, I'm, you know, really, really struggling. And he sort of took me aside and said, it's okay to feel like this. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, and know that of course you're there to do the best you can, and you want to or I know I did. I was always loved school, and always wanted to get the best marks I could and stuff. And he was like, it's just one essay. It doesn't have, nothing has to be perfect all the time. And at that point, my other lecturer, who I was especially close to, had come by in a panic because he'd seen me crying with my other lecturer. And the two of them, we kind of just sat down, and they kind of let me sort of process that and kind of compose myself again. And that felt like a weight had been lifted. And I felt really, I was like, I shouldn't have let it get as bad as it did emotionally, before I went and said, look, and before I went and admitted to them that I was struggling. So it's just look after yourself and kind of know that it's okay to ask for help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And sorry if my eyes were going somewhere else. My daughter was just running in and grabbing a few things. It's all kicking off here. I mean, what you said there, it's okay to be overwhelmed. and nothing is it doesn't have to be amazing all the time, and chances are it won't be. And you know that you can speak to people, and there's great support networks out there, isn't there? You know, whether you're in education or the workplace, or neither of those, there are support networks out there, and but it is okay to feel the pressure and ask for assistance with it. And I think that's a really important message too, that even I need to maybe remember a bit more often than I do.
I think we all do, don't we? I, I,
Yeah.
I still struggle with that nowadays. I
Mm,
still, even though now that I've left that environment, I
yeah.
still struggle sort
Yeah.
of asking people for a little bit of support.
Mm,
And it's just, it's human nature, isn't it?
yeah.
We're not conditioned, but it's, there's this mentality that um, people don't want to burden other people with their problems, and um, it doesn't have to be that way, does it? And
No.
you'll find a lot of the time, or sort of say nearly all of the time,
Mm,
people will make time for you, and they want you
yeah.
to, people want you to succeed in whatever arena that'll
Yeah.
be in, whether that's in education or whether in work. People are there because they want to see you do your best,
Yeah.
and they'll be able to help you get there.
Yeah, yeah. Because on the most part, again, that's something that a lot of us want to do. You know, we're a helpful bunch on the most part. You know, we are here to help each other out, and sometimes you just need somebody to ask you for that help so you can get stuck in and do it. So, Kerrie, thank you. And all I can say is thank you, lots and lots of times. So I'll probably send you an email later and say it, and call you up and say thank you. But in all honesty, you know, your experiences and your unique kind of journey to where you're at now is really, really interesting. And thank you for taking the time to share that with me, let alone all the students who are going to watch and listen to it. It's really appreciated. And I'll stay on the line just for a moment or two after we end this. But for now, I'll just say thanks for talking business. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you again. Thank you.
Pleasure. See you again.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Kerrie, for taking the time to discuss those insights and experiences that you have had on your career journey there. Absolutely fascinating, and I hope that that proves useful, inspirational and motivational for all the people watching and listening. It certainly has for me. So thanks again. I think I might have said it enough, but hey, here's one more. Thank you, Kerrie, and thank you to everybody else who's been listening and watching this episode here. You can get more Talking Business with Danny Pardo over on YouTube. You can say hello on all the social media channels. And please like, rate, review, share, subscribe, and do all those good things with this episode if you enjoyed it and got a lot out of it as well. And we'll see you again on another episode of Talking Business with me, Danny Pardo, real soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.